Mr. Jackson, $62,000 in packages stored in your unit.
I drive deliveries and I keep personal items in a storage unit.
This is Tyran Jackson, a FedEx delivery driver in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. One customer's missing package report was all it took to unravel $62,000 worth of stolen merchandise stored a few miles away and end his career in handcuffs.
Customer reported one missing package. It led us straight to you.
I am not saying anything without a lawyer present.
He thought one box would never matter. One parcel out of the thousands, FedEx pushes through the Baton Rouge metro every single day. One package that simply never arrived. But the customer who ordered it noticed. The customer filed a report. And 48 hours later, detectives from the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office were standing in front of a rented storage unit on the 10,500 block of Perkins Road, watching a roll-up door rise on roughly $62,000 in stolen FedEx merchandise. A Nike shoebox, crates of cigars, smoking supplies in bulk, parcels stacked against the back wall. His name is Tyran Jackson. He is 27 years old. Every charge is still an allegation, but the math is already public. Before we go any further, I want you to sit with that number for a second. $62,000 in merchandise. One storage unit on Perkins Road. One driver. One customer noticing one missing package. Drop a comment and tell me what you think the breaking point was. The greed, the convenience, the belief that nobody was actually counting. And if you are new to this channel, subscribe right now. We covered the cases where the people you trust in your driveway, on your route, on your delivery slip, end up being the ones you should have been watching. The full story is uglier than the headline. Tyran Jackson was born in Baton Rouge in the late 1990s, the second of 3 children, raised in a small brick house off Plank Road on the north side of the parish. His mother worked nights as a certified nursing assistant at a long-term care facility near Florida Boulevard. His father came and went, mostly went, drifting between contract jobs at the port of Greater Baton Rouge and a stretch in Houston that turned into years. By the time Tyran was 9, his grandmother was the one packing his lunch and walking him to the bus stop on the corner of Adams Avenue. Neighbors who knew the family remembered Tyran as the quiet middle child, the one who could disappear into a video game for 6 hours and not say a word, the one who carried his little brother on his shoulders to the corner store for a $1 bag of chips. He was not in trouble. He was not in honor classes either. He was the kind of kid who got through the school year on momentum, not effort. He attended Glen Oaks High School off Monticello Boulevard, graduating in 2017 with a class of around 230 students. His yearbook listed no clubs, no sports, no senior superlative. A guidance counselor's note in his file used the words consistent attendance and reliable. Nothing more. He walked the stage in a maroon gown, took a photo with his grandmother on the front steps of the auditorium, and the next Monday he was working the overnight stocking shift at a grocery warehouse off Choctaw Drive for $10.75 an hour. He tried community college once, one semester at Baton Rouge Community College, basic algebra and an intro to business class, both withdrawn before midterms. He told his mother the schedule did not work with his shifts. He told his brother he just did not like sitting in a classroom anymore. He never tried again. For 4 years, he bounced through the kind of jobs that fill out the bottom of a Louisiana paycheck stub. Line cook at a po' boy shop on Highland, loader at a beverage distributor near the Port Allen Bridge, a 6-month run at a tire shop on Airline Highway, where he learned to mount and balance and ended up making $14 an hour before the owner downsized. He picked up shifts at a car wash on weekends. He drove for a rideshare service after midnight when his car was running. His credit was thin. His apartment changed 3 times in 5 years. In early 2023, he saw the FedEx posting on Indeed. Delivery driver, contractor route out of the Baton Rouge sortation hub near Industriplex. Starting pay around $21 an hour for the right candidate, with route bonuses during peak season. He applied that same night from his phone, sitting in the driver's seat of his Nissan Altima in a Raising Cane's parking lot. He passed the background check. He passed the road test. The contractor who held the route, a small operator with 6 trucks and a yard on Choctaw, hired him on a 2-week trial. The trial turned into a regular slot. By the spring of 2023, Tyran Jackson was wearing the purple and orange polo, sliding into the cab of a step van every morning at 5:45, and pushing between 120 and 180 stops a day across the south side of the parish. The contractor liked him. The dispatcher liked him. His first quarterly review used the words punctual, low complaint count, and willing to take overflow routes. He picked up Saturdays when other drivers called out. He volunteered for the heavy peak weeks before Christmas. He told his grandmother on the phone that he had finally found something steady, and she told him to stay there, work the route, save his money, do not get tangled up in anything stupid. He was making, on paper, around $47,000 a year before tax. After rent on the 2-bedroom apartment off Burbank Drive, after the car note, after the cell phone bill and the cable and the insurance that he kept letting lapse and reinstating, there was not very much left at the end of the month. But there was something. For the first time in his adult life, there was something. And then, sometime in the second half of 2025, something in the math began to change. To understand what investigators say Tyran Jackson did, you have to understand the system he worked inside. FedEx Ground does not actually employ most of its delivery drivers directly. The trucks are FedEx, the uniforms are FedEx, the scanners are FedEx. But the drivers are usually employed by independent contractors, small business owners who hold the route under contract and staff it with their own employees. In Baton Rouge, dozens of these contractors operate out of the sortation hub off Airline Highway and a secondary terminal near Industriplex. Between them, they push more than 90,000 parcels through the metro on a normal weekday. During peak season, that number can double. The parcels move through a specific chain of custody, and every link in that chain is logged. A package enters the hub on an inbound trailer. A barcode scan registers it. Sorters move it onto a belt that funnels it toward the truck assigned to its zip code. The driver scans it again when it is loaded into the back of the van that morning. A handheld scanner stays with the driver all day. Every stop, every doorstep, every signature, every photo of a porch with a brown box on it generates a timestamp and a GPS coordinate. The system is designed so that at any given moment, FedEx knows which package is on which truck and where that truck is, which is exactly the gap the case turns on, because the scanner only tells the system what the driver tells it. If the driver scans a package as delivered, the system records it as delivered. If the driver simply does not scan it at all, the system flags it as still on the truck. But if the driver scans the package, manipulates the status, or quietly removes it before it ever hits the route, the box can drift in a kind of invisible zone. It exists in the warehouse manifest. It exists in the customer's tracking email. It does not exist on any porch. The trust framework that makes the whole industry function rests on one assumption. The person holding your box in transit is the last person who would keep it. The driver is the final mile. The driver is the human being you will never meet who decides whether the thing you ordered actually shows up. Customers do not check on a driver. Customers check the tracking number. They look for the little green checkmark. They watch the photo of the parcel on the doormat appear in their email. The system is built on the presumption that the man behind the scanner is honest. Baton Rouge runs on that presumption. So does every other city in the country. So does the entire architecture of e-commerce. And in the south side of East Baton Rouge Parish, on a route that wound through Highland Road, Perkins Road, Bluebonnet Boulevard, and the neighborhoods that branch off them, that presumption was, allegedly, being quietly broken. Not at the doorsteps. Not by a porch pirate trailing the truck. Inside the truck itself. The sheriff's office has not released the full investigative timeline. What investigators have said publicly, and what the evidence recovered from the storage unit suggests, is that the alleged diversion was not a single impulsive theft. It was a pattern, a practice, something that, by the time it surfaced, had been running long enough to fill a storage room. Detectives later concluded that the majority of the recovered merchandise had been in FedEx's care, custody, and control at the time it was taken. In plain English, this is the part that matters most. The items were not stolen from porches after delivery. They were lifted from the delivery stream before they ever reached a doorstep. They were taken while they were still on the truck, while they were still, in the language of the company's own manifests, in transit. The mechanism, according to the allegations, worked like this. A package would be loaded onto Jackson's truck at the start of his shift, scanned in, and logged into the route's manifest. Somewhere during the day, somewhere between the hub and the doorstep, certain boxes would peel off. They would not be scanned at the customer's address. They would not generate a doormat photo. They would either move into the cab of the truck or out of the truck entirely at a stop that was not part of the route. The scanner would either be left silent on those parcels or the status would be manipulated. From the customer's side, the package would simply stop updating. From the warehouse's side, the parcel would eventually age out of the active manifest and into a missing or exception file, which would then be flagged for investigation by FedEx's internal loss prevention team. Not every flag becomes a case. Packages go missing every day for every imaginable reason. Wrong addresses, misloads, doormat thefts after legitimate delivery, damaged barcodes. A single missing parcel almost never triggers a criminal investigation. It triggers a refund. It triggers a customer service email. It triggers a 1-star review. What investigators say Jackson allegedly understood was the volume tolerance, the threshold at which a number of missing packages becomes statistically interesting versus statistically normal. He worked a high-volume route in a high-volume market. He could absorb a certain rate of disappearance into the background noise of the system. The math, allegedly, was the lever. The diverted packages, allegedly, went into the back of his personal vehicle. From there, allegedly, they went to a rented storage unit on the 10,500 block of Perkins Road. A unit he had been paying for in his own name. A unit with a roll-up door, a concrete floor, and just enough square footage to hold what would eventually be cataloged as roughly $62,000 in retail merchandise. The items photographed by the sheriff's office tell their own story. There were piles of corrugated cardboard boxes still wearing their shipping labels. There was a prominent Nike footwear box. There were large quantities of cigars, packaged in tubes and humidor sleeves and resale boxes, along with related smoking accessories. There were parcels still sealed. There were parcels that had clearly been opened, sorted, and stacked. The contents were not curated. They were a snapshot of whatever happened to be on the truck on whatever days the alleged diversion took place. Neighbors at the storage facility, when asked later, said they had seen a man in a FedEx-style polo come and go from that unit a handful of times. Always alone, always after his shift, always with a few boxes in his arms. They had assumed, the way anyone would assume, that he was a delivery driver storing his own things. People rent storage units for every imaginable reason. Nobody at the facility had any reason to look twice. For months, allegedly, nobody did. The entire architecture, allegedly built over weeks or months of low-volume diversion, came down because of one customer in Baton Rouge who refused to let one missing box go. The parcel was ordered through a third-party retailer. The shipping confirmation was sent. The tracking number was issued. The package entered the FedEx network and made its way to the Baton Rouge sortation hub on an inbound trailer. It was scanned. It was sorted. It was placed on the truck assigned to the route, and then, according to the tracking record, it never updated again. The customer waited a day. The tracking still read out for delivery. The customer waited another day. The tracking still read out for delivery. By the morning of February 11th, 2026, that customer had pulled up the FedEx app on their phone, scrolled through the help menu, and started the process of formally reporting the package as missing. This is the part of the case that lingers, because the customer did what most customers, exhausted by holiday season delivery chaos and resigned to small losses, do not do. They followed through. They did not just request a refund and move on. They escalated. They reported the loss not just to the retailer, but to the local authorities. They told the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office that a parcel entrusted to FedEx for delivery had never arrived, and they had reason to believe it had not simply been lost. The report was filed. The case landed on the desk of the Property Theft Division on February 13th. From the outside, it looked like the smallest possible kind of case. One missing box, one frustrated customer. The kind of report that, in most jurisdictions on most days, would generate a case number, a courtesy phone call, and a quiet shelving. The property theft detectives did not shelve it. They pulled the tracking data. They mapped the package's last known scan. They cross-referenced the route. They began asking the kind of quiet, methodical questions that a single missing box almost never triggers. Who handled this parcel last? Where was the truck at the time of the final scan? Who was driving that truck? What is that driver's name? What is that driver's address? What is that driver's vehicle? What is that driver's pattern of life? The answers, one by one, pointed in one direction, and the direction they pointed in was not a doorstep. It was a storage unit on Perkins Road. We are heading into the warrant now. Before we do, if you have stayed with the story this long, that already tells me something. Subscribe if you are not already. We do this every week. We pull on the small threads that the big networks ignore, and we follow them all the way through. The next part of this case is exactly the kind of moment a city normally never sees from inside. Stick with me. The investigation that grew out of one missing parcel widened quickly. Property theft detectives, working with FedEx's internal loss prevention team, began comparing the tracking history of the February 11th package against a broader sample of missing or exception files attributed to the same route. They began identifying patterns, times of day, specific stops where the scanner had gone silent, specific zip codes where missing parcel rates had been quietly running higher than the surrounding routes. They identified Tyran Jackson by name. They identified his vehicle. They began watching. What they say they observed, according to the affidavit submitted in support of the search warrant, was a pattern of movement that did not match the pattern of a driver who simply went home after his shift. They observed Jackson's personal vehicle after the end of his FedEx route, making stops at a storage facility on the 10,500 block of Perkins Road. They observed him moving items from the vehicle into a specific rented unit. They observed the timing. They observed the duration. They built the kind of probable cause that a Baton Rouge judge will sign a warrant for. The warrant authorized a search of the storage unit and seizure of any items believed to be stolen FedEx merchandise. It was signed in the back half of February 2026. Detectives executed it shortly after. The roll-up door went up, and the inside of the unit, according to the photographs the sheriff's office released to the public, did not look like a personal storage space. It looked like a small, disorganized warehouse. Boxes stacked against the back wall, parcels and shipping labels, a Nike footwear box catching the light, tubes and sleeves of cigars piled in their original packaging, smoking accessories in bulk, some boxes sealed, some boxes opened and resorted. The floor was a cardboard mosaic. Detectives spent hours photographing, inventorying, and recording every item. The numbers, as they came together, told the story. Approximately $62,000 in retail value. The clear majority of which, investigators later concluded, had been in FedEx's care, custody, and control at the time it went missing. Meaning the items were not gathered from porches. They were not bought from doorstep thieves. They were diverted before delivery. The sheriff's office made the decision, after the initial inventory, that it would not be opening a broader victim search effort. The reasoning was simple. The merchandise had been FedEx property at the time of the alleged theft, not customer property. Customers who had been refunded for missing parcels had been made whole by FedEx and the originating retailers. The merchandise, where appropriate, would be returned to FedEx for redistribution or disposition. The criminal case would proceed against the person they say diverted it. That person, according to the sheriff's office, was Tyran Jackson. The arrest came after the inventory was complete. Detectives located Jackson, took him into custody, and transported him to the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison for booking. The exchange that took place when the deputies first approached him, captured in part on body-worn camera, was short. He did not run. He did not deny knowing what a storage unit on Perkins Road was. He did not pretend he was someone else. Detective: Tyran, we need you to step over here. Hands where I can see them. Jackson: Yes, sir. Detective: Do you know why we are here? Jackson: I think I do. Detective: The unit on Perkins. We just executed the warrant. You want to tell us anything before we go any further? Jackson: I need to talk to a lawyer. That was the end of the conversation. He was patted down. He was handcuffed. He was placed in the back of the marked unit. He did not look at the deputies. He did not look at the storage facility. He looked at the floorboard of the vehicle for the entire ride to the parish prison. His booking photograph, released by the sheriff's office shortly afterward, shows a young man with a close-cropped fade, a thin chin-strap beard, and the kind of flat, exhausted expression that any booking officer in any parish prison in Louisiana would recognize on sight. The mugshot is not a portrait of a hardened criminal. It is a portrait of someone who has just understood, in the back of a sheriff's vehicle, that the math has finally caught up with him. His grandmother, when the story broke on local television that evening, did not pick up the phone for 3 days. This case is not finished. It is, in fact, barely beginning. That distinction matters. Tyran Jackson was booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison on one charge of felony theft. Under Louisiana Revised Statutes, Title 14, Section 67, theft is graded by the value of the property taken. The most serious category, theft of $25,000 or more, carries the heaviest felony penalties under Louisiana law, with potential exposure of up to 20 years at hard labor along with restitution. The reporting on Jackson's case has specified only that he was booked on felony theft. It has not specified the exact grade or statutory subsection. That detail remains, at the time of this case becoming public, not yet released. FedEx, in a brief public statement issued after the arrest, confirmed that Jackson was no longer providing delivery services on the company's behalf. He had been terminated. The contractor who held the route had moved to fill his slot. The purple and orange polo had been collected. The scanner had been collected. The route had moved on without him by the next morning. No arraignment date has been reported. No plea has been entered. No defense attorney has been publicly named. No court division has been formally assigned in the open record. The case sits for now at the booking stage, which means everything above the recovery of the merchandise itself remains an allegation by the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. Allegations are not convictions. Booking photographs are not verdicts. A storage unit full of boxes is evidence, but evidence is not a finding of guilt. The presumption of innocence applies to Tyran Jackson as fully as it applies to anyone else processed through the doors of that parish prison. The sheriff's office has indicated the investigation remains open. Other charges may follow as the inventory of the storage unit is fully reconciled against missing parcel reports across the route. They may not. The case may resolve through a plea negotiation. It may go to trial. It may, in the way many property theft cases in Louisiana resolve, end with a guilty plea to a reduced charge and a sentence that combines a period of probation with restitution to the company. None of that has happened yet. None of that is predicted here. What has happened is this. A 27-year-old man from North Baton Rouge took a job that paid him $47,000 a year to drive a truck full of other people's property to other people's doorsteps. At some point, allegedly, he began keeping some of it. He warehoused it, allegedly, in a storage unit a few miles from the apartments and the shopping plazas and the small wood frame houses where the boxes were supposed to land. He built up, allegedly, a hoard of roughly $62,000 in retail merchandise. And the entire structure of that hoard came undone because one customer in Baton Rouge, on the 11th of February, refused to let one missing parcel disappear into the background noise of a holiday season delivery system. Large thefts die by small reports. The same logistic system precise enough to flag one missing package is precise enough to follow it home. That is the lesson the early reporting on this case quietly leaves on the floor. Whether the lesson holds up in a Louisiana courtroom is a question that has not yet been asked. The courthouse, the docket, the judge, the jury, the verdict, the sentence, all of that lies ahead. For now, the only finished part of this story is the inventory list and the booking sheet. The rest is coming. This case was bold. But the case on your screen right now, the audacity is on a completely different level. Click it now.